In the first part of this series, we took a brief look at the timeline and set our output frame rate to 30 frames per second. Let's look a bit closer at the timeline and how to navigate it before we start importing frame sequences. At the bottom, you'll see the start and end frames. By default, the start is set at 1 and the end is set at 250. We won't change the start frame, except under certain circumstances, but we'll need to change the end frame. Start by estimating how many seconds your final program will be. For this example, we'll choose 1 minute, or 60 seconds. Now multiply that number by 30 to get a result of 1800 frames. For 1 minute of video output, we'll need to render 1800 frames, so put that number in the end frame space. Beside the start and end frame boxes, there is another box that shows the position of the current frame. You'll see that it corresponds with the green time indicator in the Video Sequence Editor tab. You can change the current frame in several ways. Click the right arrow in the current frame box to move ahead. Each click will move forward 1 frame. Click the left arrow to move back. You can also use the arrow keys on your keyboard to do the same. Holding down the Shift key and pressing the right arrow key will move you to the end of the timeline. Holding down the Shift key and pressing the left arrow key will move you to the start. If you left-click your mouse anywhere in the timeline, the current frame indicator will move to that spot. This is a good way to get approximately where you want to be on the timeline. You can then use the arrow keys to get to the exact frame you need. You'll notice that if you've set the end frame to 1800, the right side of the timeline only goes to about frame 300 or so, depending on your screen resolution. To move the entire timeline so you can see other parts of it, center-click on your mouse, hold the button down, and move the mouse to the right or left. If you're using a Mac with a trackpad, place 2 fingers on the pad and scroll right and left. In order to see the entire timeline on one screen, place the mouse pointer in the middle of the timeline and press Home on your keyboard. Experiment with moving along the timeline until you become comfortable with it. Now we're ready to import frames. Make sure that the current frame in the timeline is set to 1. Put your mouse pointer over the sequencer tracks and press Shift-A on your keyboard. A menu will pop up. From the options available, select Image. This will take you to a file selector. Find the directory that holds the sequence you want to use. If you are using the files from the program pack, that's likely to be the directory for the external media. For this example, I'm going to select the Jupyter directory by clicking on it once. Then, I'll select the I/O flyover directory. Again, you only need to click once. You may select as many frames as you want, but for this example, I'll select all of them by pressing A on the keyboard. Then, either press Return or click on Add Image Strip in the upper right-hand corner of the file selector. You'll see the preview in the window above the sequencer and a purple strip that has the name and file location for the image sequence you've just imported, followed by the number of frames. That is the image strip. To fit the preview in the window, you can do this in a few ways. The easiest is to place your mouse pointer in the window and press Home on the keyboard. If you have a scrolling mouse, you can zoom in and out easily by placing the pointer in the window and using the scroll wheel. Finally, you can resize the preview window by placing the mouse pointer on the border between it and the sequencer and dragging the edge of the window up and down. If you move along the timeline, you can see the preview change. You can play back the sequence by pressing Alt-A, but unless you have a really fast computer, it won't play back in real time. Press Alt-A again, or press the Escape key to stop playback. In the next lesson, we'll look at importing another sequence, how to make a jump cut, and how to move image strips around the sequencer.